Earlier this week, I was scrolling through the upcoming releases on the eShop and I saw a familiar face. Sniper Hunter Scope was originally released way back in 2020. Yet it seems like every few months I see a new bundled version being released. And that's a problem. More specifically, that's a problem with the eShop itself. Sniper Hunter Scope is one of many mobile-esque games that have found their way onto the Nintendo Switch. In the past few years, the eShop has become a wasteland of adult-lite games, mobile ports, and cheapo asset swap cash grabs, which I guess is fine on the whole since I'd rather have more options than less options, but there is one very specific scheme that the eShop allows that drives me insane. I'm gonna call it the Endless Re-Release. Sniper is one of those endless re-release games. The model looks something like this. Release a game, then release some DLC, then re-release the base game as a bundle with some but not all of the DLC, then rebundle the game with the other set of DLC but not the first set, then release more DLC and continue to bundle and re-release the same game with endless permutations of cheap DLCs. And since these are all technically different bundles, they will continue to show up on the coming soon category as well as the new release category on the eShop. It is a dirty, slimy business practice and I find it absolutely maddening. To be fair, Sniper Hunter Scope is not the only game that rides this merry-go-round. Developer Baltoro Games is notorious for doing this with all of their properties. Just take a look at their page on the eShop and you'll see that each of their games is bundled up the wazoo. Bigger, more legitimate studios do something similar too, releasing ultimate editions of their games with all of the DLC included. That makes perfect sense. It's a single complete bundle with all of the content that's been released. Sniper Hunter Scope has 7 bundles. 7. Do you know how many DLCs have been released for the game? Just 5. 5 DLCs, 7 bundles. That math ain't mathing. And if you wanted to buy all 5 DLCs on their own, you can in a 5-in-1 DLC bundle pack. So I guess it's technically 8 bundles. Good luck figuring out which DLCs go with which version. Unlucky for you, I made this handy chart just to prove my point. Just look at this. It is complete, total nonsense. The only reason that you would package a game like this is to be able to consistently have your game on the new release and coming soon carousel. There's a very simple solution to this problem too. Don't allow bundles to show up in the new release and coming soon categories. It's shady, it's greedy, and I hate everything about it. So naturally, I had to buy the game to see what all the fuss is about. I chose the Ultimate Firepower Edition because it was only $1.99 on sale and included the most recent weapon DLC as well as the expansion pass. So with all that out of the way, how's the game? Sniper Hunter Scope is a mobile game through and through. For most levels, you're in a fixed location. The camera will zoom into an area, enemies will appear, and you'll blast them. There are some power-ups you can get, like the ability to slow down time or view everything through night vision goggles, but mostly you'll just be moving a cursor around the screen and shooting anything that moves. There's a gyro option that the game encourages you to use, but I didn't think it made the game any better. There are also cover shooter levels where you'll move on rails from cover to cover in third person, popping out to shoot the bad guys and moving on. There's also a very similar sequence where you bring your cover with you in the form of a riot shield, but for some reason these levels are in first person, more like a traditional light gun game. Ultimately, all the different level types have you scrolling a cursor around the screen and clicking on enemies. Overall, I'd say Sniper Hunter Scope is best described as a mix of Silent Scope and one of those raw thrills arcade games, but without any of the bombastic charm. And I'm surprised to say this, but Sniper Hunter Scope can be a good bit of fun. Nailing a headshot will cause everything to slow down for a moment, allowing you to line up another quick headshot, again extending the slow-mo. Pulling off a bunch of headshots in a row actually feels great. What isn't great is basically everything else. You see, progression in the game isn't based on winning levels. Actually, I'm fairly sure you could see it all the way through to the end and never actually beat a stage. That's because progression is tied to your score. Levels are all timed, and the way you beat a stage is just by surviving to the end of the time limit. Enemies will just keep coming and coming until the timer runs out. You'll rack up a score as you take down foes, and you get to keep that score whether or not you actually survive to the end. That score is added to a score pool, and once you get enough points, a new level unlocks. This is fairly typical for some mobile games, but the problem is that unlocking new levels requires you to play the same stages over and over and over and over again. What was fun in short bursts soon becomes a tedious nightmare. There's also a reload mechanic straight out of Gears of War, where you'll have to nail the timing of the reload. The problem is that every time the screen changes position, the reload icon disappears. So if you try to reload while moving or while in cover, you'll almost always fail the timing, despite that being the best and most logical time to reload. You get paid at the end of every stage too, and you can either use that cash to buy new weapons or 3D models from the store. Since I bought a bundle that came with DLC, I already had access to the best weapon in the game, so any incentive to buy new weapons was gone from the jump, and thank God. I cannot imagine having to play these stages with worse weapons, adding even more time to an already incredibly padded game. Also, when I take a look at the DLC weapons I don't own, their stats are nearly identical to the DLC I do own. And since most of the game is in first person, the only real difference is the style of the crosshairs, which makes all of those various DLC packed bundles seem like even more of a scam, since any one of them will net you a best weapon for the game. I also bought the expansion pack, which promised new zombie-themed levels. That's a lie. There's one new level, broken up into 2 levels, but one is during the day while the other is at night. It's such a joke. The zombies can't hurt you either, so the only point of this DLC is simply an easier way to rack up points in order to open up new stages. So now, instead of playing the normal stages, you can just mindlessly shoot zombies in a barrel without any tension or possibility of danger over and over and over and over again. Had this game been an hour and a half long, and each level opened up immediately upon beating the previous one, and the only weapon available was the best DLC weapon, I imagine I might have actually been pretty generous to this game. The core gameplay is fun in a simple arcadey kind of way. The problem is that the progression system is just truly mean, and any fun I was having evaporated extremely quickly. Pair the disgustingly greedy and manipulative bundle policies with a game that's an inch wide and an inch deep that tries to suck your time away with its horrible and unnecessary repetition, and I'm left hating SNIPER. Nintendo really needs to tighten the sieve when it comes to this bullshit. Putting out a bad game is one thing. Putting out the same bad game over and over again, forcing me to look at its ugly, offensive face every time I open the eShop is unforgivable. I'm gonna give SNIPER Hunter Scope a 1.3 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, it would mean a lot if you liked and subscribed to the channel. I'll be dropping a new, longer video very soon, so I hope you'll check it out. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.